Hi everybody, this is Kevin Van Ord here, and I'm in the process of reviewing The Secret World, which is Funcom's newest, massively multiplayer online RPG, and as you probably know, I've been live streaming the game while I've been playing, and I'm not quite ready for the review yet, but I did want to sort of get together and talk about my impressions of The Secret World, and also just address some of the questions that generally seem to come up in the chat while I'm live streaming the game. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what The Secret World is offering at this stage in the game. So question number one that comes up is what's good about The Secret World? What would make me want to play this game? And a few things immediately jump to mind. Number one is the atmosphere. As you probably know, The Secret World is about modern day myths. It's sort of a combination of all of the myths and all of the urban legends that we think of in modern day, and it's all put together in this sort of creepy version of the modern world. So it's got great atmosphere. Part of that is the story. There are fully voiced cutscenes, and the voice acting is really good, and it really draws you in. And the writing, in a very similar kind of way, it draws you in. It makes you believe that this place really is overrun with monsters and that people are in hiding. The writing is very self-conscious, but it works. It makes sense that the writing would be as self-conscious as it is, because of course this is atmosphere that's based on literature, and so it ends up working in this particular context. The sound design is also a big part of the atmosphere. The sound design is incredibly excellent. The weakest parts are perhaps some of the weapon noises can get a little bit grating, but overall the ambient sound, the soundtrack, everything comes together to make you feel like this is a really terrible place, that it's really creepy and foreboding, and it comes across well in part because of the sound design. Some other great things about the game include the investigation quests. You don't always get a waypoint to tell you where you need to go. You need to read the quest description, you need to look at the items that you were given in reference to the quest. I don't want to give anything away, but let's just say that you really need to think out a lot of these things, and some of it is pretty hard in that old school PC point-and-click adventure game kind of hard. So a lot of this stuff you really have to think out. And maybe finally one of the game's finest qualities is the flexible way in which you can create your character. There are no levels as you think of them in The Secret World, and so as you push forward, you can sort of mix and match your abilities as you see fit. There are what are called decks, and those decks allow you to more or less put together a pre-made class, but you can really put together your abilities in any way that you want. And you're limited at any time to using 7 active abilities I should say, and 7 passive abilities. So of course, the second question that comes up afterwards is what's not so good about this game, and I would say that we'll start with the overall feel of movement and combat. Everything is very floaty and inexact. Some of that comes down to the animations, which look a little odd much of the time. So there's a floaty feel. You sense that you're not moving across the ground so much as you're hovering over it and your legs happen to be moving. And when you're engaged in combat, it doesn't necessarily feel like you're making contact with your enemies. And that seems like relatively small things, but they really impact the moment-to-moment way you interact with The Secret World. And it's that I think has some players turned off, because overall it contributes to a little bit of this sense of cheapness to the combat and to the movement. There are also some broken quests to deal with. Not that the game has been truly buggy in the way that you might have remembered from Funcom's previous games, which were Age of Conan and Anarchy Online, which didn't launch extremely well. The Secret World's launch has been really, really smooth, but there are still some bugs in there, particularly where quests are concerned, and some visual oddities, we'll say, such as shadows and lighting not working in the way that you would normally expect. There are some qualities in the secret world, however, that you could see as good, you could see as bad, depending on your point of view. I'm going to throw these out there and let you make what you will of them. I haven't really come to a conclusion on how I feel about these particular aspects of the game, but I did want to mention real briefly the limited quest log. You can only take a limited number of types of quests at any given time. The good side is that means that when you're questing, you're usually involved in what you're doing, because you're not just going out and chasing a bunch of waypoints. You usually understand why you're doing what you're doing, and you're usually caring about the context of the quest. It's not just go out there and kill a bunch of stuff because that's what you're supposed to do. Usually you have some kind of good context for that, and you're focused on that one particular thing. The downside, of course, is that you end up backtracking through areas a lot of the time, because you're going to a place where you have to complete a new quest, wishing that maybe you could have just combined these things at one time. So there is a downside. You're not going to fill up a quest log with 30 quests at one time and go out and just do all that stuff at once. You are going to take a few quests on at any given time and really be focused on doing those particular things. So you could see that as an upside in terms of being involved in what you're doing, but you could also see that as a downside in the sense that you don't feel like you're accomplishing as much in any given journey as you might be in another MMO. There's also the aspect of the real money store. You can spend real money on costumes. Now, how you dress in the secret world doesn't have any effect on your stats. So this is all just cosmetic. And you can spend real money on that stuff, but it comes across as a little bit of a cash grab in the sense that the secret world is not a free-to-play game. The secret world costs you money right off the shelf, and then you have to spend 15 bucks a month as well. So when you also have the additional aspect of having a cash store, that can come across as feeling a little bit overboard. Another question that comes up is, how does the crafting work? And the crafting is really interesting in the sense that you have to take raw materials for crafting and put them on a grid in a particular pattern, sort of like Minecraft style.
The dragon is dominating the center.
Another question that comes up is, how is the player versus player? And I have limited experience at this stage with the PvP, but I can tell you this: there are 3 maps, one of which is a persistent map. So think of it maybe like Dark Age of Camelot's, 3-realm system, where the 3 different factions in the secret world, being the Dragon, the Illuminati, and the Templars, they come together to capture particular points of interest on this map, and it's always persistent. The other 2 maps are for one-off matches, and the PvP is fun, but this is sort of where the floaty movement in combat starts to really hurt the game, because when you're playing with a bunch of other players and you're not involved in the questing and you're not involved with the world, all you have is the moment-to-moment gameplay. And this is where things start to feel a little odd, because it becomes a little bit chaotic. Because that stuff doesn't feel as tight as it might have, the PvP comes across as a little sloppy because everything's so chaotic in the way it looks and the way it moves. But the jury's still out right now. I haven't really come to any conclusions on how I feel about the PvP thus far, but because that moment-to-moment gameplay seems to lack a little bit, the first impression isn't as positive as I'd like it to have been. And finally, a question that comes up a lot is, so the secret world doesn't have levels, so how do you feel like you're actually making progress? And it's a good question, and actually the secret world does a really good job of making you feel like you're progressing, even though you don't have a number assigned to your level. So you have an experience bar, and you still earn experience as you play. And then when you reach particular spots, you earn more ability points and you earn more skill points. Ability points are used to buy new abilities and more powerful abilities, and skill points are used to upgrade the skills that you have, as well as to enable yourself to equip higher level talismans. Talismans are sort of like accessories in other RPGs. You don't actually equip gear in the sense that you don't equip armor and you don't equip things like that. Instead, you equip these talismans, and these talismans then influence your particular stats. So they might give you more hit points, they might allow you to take more damage or to do more damage. And so this is how the game is giving you a sense of moving forward. It is in some ways almost like you are leveling, you're just not given a number attached to your level. But you still are making progress through the game, and you still are able to earn more powerful abilities and still able to equip better and better talismans as you go. In the meanwhile, my name is Kevin Van Ord. Thanks for listening to the First Week Impressions of the Secret World, and I will see you out there in the game.